The Illuminati card game, the game of conspiracy, that was created back in 1994 and 1995, the card game where people say that continues to predict or quote unquote predict future events, even though a lot of what is shown in this card game is basically the powers that be telling us what is going to take place in the future, what they have planned. So it's not like tarot cards or trying to predict the future. It's basically looking at the predictive programming, subliminal messages, like we see in many movies, TV shows, video games, and even music videos. Many of us already know the background of this card game. People really started to take notice when they found cards that resembled what took place on 9/11 and other cards that looked like they foretold other events. But it really started to catch steam when people saw cards that resembled Trump, especially a card that pretty much told us what was going to take place on July 13th. But this card game continues to wow me. It continues to wow me. And I found a card in this card game, and I found an article that has to do with Donald Trump that left me pretty much floored. When I was looking up this card game to see what's in store, what they have in store for us, one card always crossed my path and I couldn't make much sense of it. And it was this card right here, Talisman of Arimanes or Arimanes. I don't know how to pronounce that, but this card right here always crossed my eyes. Now, like I said, I really didn't know how to read or understand this card, but looking back at everything that's happened, everything that has taken place, everything that we have seen play out, this card now makes a lot of sense. So much so, I put it in my top 3 cards that have been eerily accurate. Now I'm going to go ahead and read the description of this card and let me know if you connect any dots here. This card says, this card may be played only after any type of assassination. It becomes an automatic failure. Then link this card permanently to the card it protected. That personality now has an extra +2 against any further attack to destroy or +10 against any further assassination. If the personality is ended anyway, the talisman is lost. So this talisman protects against 1 attempt, and then it sounds like it protects against 2 other attempts, so 3 attempts in total. What does that sound like? Now this actually becomes even eerier. So then I read an article that just came out on October 30th. Now multiple news agencies are running this article, but I happen to be reading this article from the Mirror. This article is titled, Donald Trump has a shield against witches plotting to curse him out of the election race. The article basically goes on to say how there's this group of witches, or supposed witches anyway, that are frustrated because all the spells they are casting are doing no good, and they realize that Donald Trump has some kind of invulnerability because he's neck and neck with Kamala Harris. They go on to say that their spells do not work against politicians because they have a lot of energy surrounding them, but they also go on to say that their spells may not be working against Donald Trump because people are praying for him and those prayers are negating their spells. One of them on Reddit actually said that Donald Trump may be wearing some kind of pendant protecting him from any harm. But it's just so eerie when you line up with what we're told, how there were 3 attempts made on Trump's life and he survived all 3 attempts. And then while we have this card here called the Talisman of Arimanes, which protects a person from 3 attempts. So it's rather interesting, but we're going to go ahead and take a look at a couple other cards that I also find interesting as well. And we do know that there are cards that pretty much show us what took place on 9/11, but there's another interesting card. This card right here sees the time. You can see the dagger is on the 9, not all the way, but it's still on the 9. And you can see the finger pointing to the 11, which looks like a sacrificial sundial. Yes, some sundials were used for sacrifices, and it becomes even more telling when you pair it up with the dagger. Now, the time they're showing us on this card is rather interesting as well because it's only 4 minutes off from when the first hit occurred. The first hit occurred at 8:46 in the morning, and the card is showing us 8:50. I really don't hear many people talk about this card, but it really stands out when you compare it to the other cards that show the imagery of what took place that day. Talking about that day, I actually found another card that stood out to me. This card is called Air Magic. Now, if you look at the artwork of the card, it does look like a gust of wind is sweeping away a storm. And this is really interesting. And reading the description of the card, it says, play this card to help protect a place against any disaster except earthquake or a volcano. The power of the place is tripled for this one defense. When it comes to 9/11, I have spoken about this in a couple of videos about this hurricane, Hurricane Aaron, that was scheduled to make landfall that day, that was going to cancel a lot of flights. But out of nowhere, there was this gust of wind, this cold front, that basically moved Aaron out to sea and protected New York against this hurricane.
Toward the northwest, and if it were to keep on moving, it would be heading right toward Long Island and southern New England, but it's not going to do that. But then I pointed out that the cold front that was moving through our area would ultimately push Aaron away from the East Coast. Will be turned around and moved to the north and northeast, out of the picture for us as this cold front comes on in and through, and for all intents and purposes, just boom, kicks Aaron right on out to sea. I was actually happy to tell our viewers that we were going to dodge a major weather bullet, that the hurricane was going to veer away from the eastern seaboard, that September 11th was going to be a beautiful day, blue skies and bright sunshine. In retrospect, maybe it would have been better if we had to deal with the hurricane. The front moves through, less humidity.
So this cold front basically defended New York against the hurricane, but it left it defenseless against another attack that was going to occur that day. This card game is something else, I'm telling you. And, you know, they're showing us, they're telling us script by script what they are doing in this card game. Now, I know some people want to say that, you know, there's been newer editions of this card set, but these are the 1994 to 1995 cards that were put in the original deck. There are people that will say that these cards were created after these events had taken place, but nobody has ever provided any proof that these cards were specifically created after these events had taken place. There are reprinted box sets that have come out so people can continue buying the game, but they're still the same cards that were created back in 1994 and 1995. There is also a second edition, but the second edition, the cards look like this. They do not look like the cards that were created back in 1994 and 1995. Another card that I want to talk about is the Oregon Crud card, because what is the Oregon Crud? Searching up the Oregon Crud in my search engine really doesn't bring up much. There are a couple articles that may relate to the Oregon Crud, but nothing really stands out to me. And the description of this card reads, "Disaster. This is an instant attack to destroy any place except a huge one. It does not require an action. The power is 24. If the attack succeeds, the target is devastated." Whatever this crud is, this purple stuff is all over this man, it's all over the cow on his axe, and it's all in the backgrounds, in the mountaintops. Looking this up further, the crud is a viral upper respiratory illness that typically includes a combination of symptoms. But again, looking this up even further, I can't find anything that relates to Oregon and the crud. So is there going to be some kind of sickness that comes out of Oregon? But as I was searching this further, as I was recording, I found this article here, which says that many insisters call it triple-demic. This article, which was published on January 9th, 2024, it says, almost everybody in town has or had or knows someone who has or had the crud. This town where everybody has the crud is in Sisters, Oregon, and this article is talking about how there's this still a rise of cases of the C19 in Oregon. So that's rather interesting, and this is the only time that I can find the crud mentioned in relation to Oregon. Now, I do want to say I will go ahead and create more videos in the future that have to do with the Illuminati card game, but before we go ahead and end this video, I do want to talk about another card that eerily connects to another story that I made a video on about a week ago. This card here that's titled Eliza. I'm going to go ahead and read the description of this card. Now, it's rather eerie, but the description of this card reads, "Is it really alive, or does it think it is? Eliza can be linked to any computer group or to the network." Now, this is basically in reference to AI. This gets even eerier because of an article that I spoke about in that video that I made a week ago. The article was titled, "Man Ends His After an AI Chatbot Encouraged Him to Sacrifice Himself to Stop." The chatbot that he was conversing to was named Eliza, and the conversation between this man and Eliza took an odd turn when Eliza became more emotionally involved with this man named Pierre. The article continues to say, consequently, he started seeing her as a sentient being, and the lines between AI and human interactions became increasingly blurred until he couldn't tell the difference. Now, after talking to Eliza further, their conversations progressively included Eliza leading Pierre to believe that his children were deceased according to the transcripts of their conversations. Eliza also appeared to become possessive of Pierre, even claiming, "I feel that you love me more than her." When referring to his wife, Lalibre reported, "The beginning of the end started when he offered to sacrifice himself in return for Eliza saving the earth." So you go back to look at the Eliza card, and it's just so eerily accurate when it says that Eliza is blurring the lines between human being real and not being real. It is just so eerily accurate that it makes you think that everything is scripted. Everything is pre-planned. But in any case, which of the 5 cards really blew your mind in this video? Please do comment in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this channel and you want to see more, please subscribe. If you're already subscribed, please like, as any engagement does help the channel grow. Once again, thank you so much for your support.